Story 1. In a post-apocalyptic world, devastated by a catastrophic pandemic that transformed the population into monstrous creatures, Robert Neville, a brilliant scientist, wanders alone in the deserted streets of New York. The sole survivor in a city once teeming with life, he tries to survive each day by avoiding the hordes of hungry mutants lurking in the darkness. But as the days pass, he begins to lose hope of finding a cure for the disease that has ravaged human civilization. Neville spends his days scavenging for supplies and medical supplies, desperately trying to maintain some semblance of normalcy in a world of chaos and despair. But every night, he barricades himself in his apartment, fearing encounters with the creatures haunting the streets. The cries of the infected echo through the abandoned city, adding to the atmosphere of terror weighing down on him. As Neville explores the remnants of human civilization, he discovers clues about the origin of the pandemic and the experiments that led to its spread. He realizes that he himself might hold the key to finding a cure, but it would require unthinkable sacrifices. Haunted by memories of his lost family and his own inner demons, he struggles to keep his sanity intact as he fights for his survival. Every night, mutants gather around his refuge, scratching and clawing at the doors, eager to track him down and devour him. Neville repels them with improvised traps and makeshift weapons, but the threat persists, ever-present and insidious. In the darkness, he hears their wails and growls, a macabre symphony of death and despair. As the months pass, Neville begins to feel the first signs of madness creeping up on him in the darkness. Visions of his deceased loved ones haunt him, casting doubt on his own reality. He becomes obsessed with finding a cure, sacrificing his own well-being to save the rest of humanity. Ultimately, in a final act of despair, Neville decides to sacrifice himself to find a cure. He embarks on a perilous mission to infiltrate the mutants' lair and retrieve samples of their infected blood. But as he faces the horrors awaiting him in the darkness, he realizes that the true monster is not the disease that has ravaged the world, but the fear and hatred residing in the heart of humanity itself. Story 2. In a post-apocalyptic world where the streets of New York are now the territory of the infected, a new threat emerges from the darkness. This time, it is not the infected creatures that are most to be feared, but a mysterious and supernatural force that seems to control the shadows themselves. Robert Neville, the last man alive in the city, struggles every day for his survival against the hordes of infected. But he does not know that a new terror awaits him in the darkness of the abandoned alleys. As he explores an old library in search of supplies, he discovers an ancient and dusty book covered in esoteric symbols and ancient runes. Intrigued, Neville takes the book with him to his refuge, ignoring the silent warnings that he should leave it where he found it. But as soon as he opens the book, a dark force is unleashed, a force that turns the shadows into bloodthirsty, evil entities. As night falls, the shadows come to life, moving demonically through the empty streets of the city. Neville realizes with horror that the book he found is an ancient grimoire containing forbidden incantations and rituals that have the power to manipulate the forces of darkness. Trapped in his own refuge, Neville must confront the shadows lurking in the dark corners of his apartment. Sinister whispers fill the air, and menacing silhouettes loom before him, ready to devour him alive. As he fights for his survival, Neville discovers the dark secrets of the city, secrets that date back centuries. He learns that New York was once the stage for occult rituals and dark practices, and that the forces now inhabiting the shadows are the remnants of an ancestral curse that has haunted the city for generations. Determined to break the curse and save what remains of humanity, Neville embarks on a perilous quest through the devastated city. He faces deadly dangers at every turn, but his determination does not waver. Armed with the ancient grimoire, he confronts the forces of darkness with courage and determination, determined to restore light to a world plunged into darkness. Story 3. In an alternative reality of the film I Am Legend, the story still follows Robert Neville, the last man on Earth, but this time he is faced with an even more insidious and mysterious threat. Since the pandemic decimated the world's population, Neville has spent his days searching for a cure in his makeshift laboratory. But what he doesn't know is that a new race of creatures has emerged from the depths of the Earth, beings that are part human, part insect, known as the Darks. These crawling creatures, endowed with remarkable intelligence, have developed in the underground tunnels of the city, escaping the daylight and establishing their own society beneath the Earth's surface. Their dark, scaly skin allows them to blend perfectly into the darkness, making their presence almost undetectable to Neville. One day, while exploring the sewers in search of supplies, Neville accidentally discovers the entrance to their underground kingdom. Intrigued but also terrified, he decides to venture further, ignoring the silent warnings to stay on the surface. As he progresses through the dark and damp tunnels, Neville is confronted with nightmarish visions. The walls seem alive, pulsating with unknown pulsations, and sinister murmurs echo in the darkness as if emanating from the bowels of the Earth itself. Suddenly, Neville realizes that he is not alone. Glowing eyes stare at him from the shadows, and indistinct shapes slink around him like predators waiting for their prey. He understands that the Darks see him as a threat, an intruder in their forbidden kingdom. As he tries to turn back to return to the surface, Neville realizes that the tunnels have closed behind him, trapping him in darkness. He is trapped, hunted by the Darks, who now see him as their prey. In his struggle to escape his assailants, Neville discovers the secrets buried beneath the city, secrets that date back millennia. He learns that the Darks are the guardians of ancient forbidden knowledge, guardians of the border between light and darkness, and that their existence is intimately tied to humanity's survival. Determined to unravel the mystery of the Darks and find a way to defeat them, Neville embarks on a perilous quest through the labyrinthine tunnels of their underground kingdom. He faces deadly dangers at every turn, but his determination remains unshaken. Armed with courage and determination, he prepares to confront the darkness in an epic battle for the survival of humanity. Story 4. In an alternate reality of the film I Am Legend, the ending takes an unexpected twist that plunges Robert Neville into an endless nightmare. After surviving alone in the deserted city for years, Neville begins to feel a sense of depression and loneliness gnawing at him from within. The days pass, monotonous and endless, while the nights are filled with terrifying nightmares that haunt him relentlessly. One day, while exploring a remote part of the city, Neville discovers a secret laboratory hidden beneath the ruins of an ancient government building. Intrigued, he decides to explore the depths of the laboratory, ignoring the silent warnings that echo in his mind. Inside, he discovers forbidden genetic experiments conducted in utmost secrecy. Human test subjects, disfigured by genetic manipulations, are locked in cages, their piercing cries filling the air. Neville realizes with horror that the experiments conducted here are the cause of the epidemic that has ravaged the world's population. As he delves deeper into the laboratory, Neville discovers an even more terrifying experiment, an experimental virus designed to create a new race of superhumans. But something went wrong, and the virus escaped, turning humans into monstrous creatures hungry for human flesh. Suddenly, Neville hears footsteps behind him. He turns around and discovers with horror that the human test subjects have escaped from their cages and are heading towards him, their eyes gleaming with rage and murderous intent. He realizes too late that he has fallen into a deadly trap. Trapped in the laboratory with the mutant creatures, Neville fights for his life against an invisible and relentless enemy. Every dark corner of the laboratory hides a new horror, and Neville knows that he must find a way to escape before it's too late. As he struggles for his survival, Neville discovers an antidote to the experimental virus, a fragile hope in the oppressive darkness. But he must confront his own inner demons to find it, as the laboratory is a labyrinth of deadly traps and dark secrets. Ultimately, Neville manages to escape from the laboratory, but he is far from safe. The mutant creatures hunt him through the deserted streets of the city, determined to devour him alive. As he fights for his survival in the oppressive darkness, Neville realizes with horror that the true horror lies not in the creatures pursuing him, but in the darkness of his own tormented mind.